I did my first line of meth at 12 years old. I was 12 years old and I never looked back. My neighbors used to cook it. They used to cook this stuff. I would go over to their house and get it from them, or guys from school that had older brothers, they would give it to them. And junior high school, I got bags of meth on me. So, and for me, it was normal at the time because it's like, it's become a part of me.
I think for me, what was really going on under all of my addiction and drug abuse was trauma and hatred. I covered up a lot. I covered up me being a shitty father. I covered up me not having a father. He had a disease, and his disease was addiction, and he died from that. And so growing up, I had this hatred. Like I hated him. I hated somebody who was no longer here. When I got older and I started using, I hated myself. I was kind of like, all right, well, you're a hypocrite, and now you're not a good dad. So what are you gonna stop for? That's what I tell myself. What are you gonna stop for? Just go harder in the paint. Keep using.
Addiction is not really yeah, we choose to pick that up. We choose to pick up those drugs, but it's a disease at the end of the day. Like, through my addiction, I isolated myself, and I didn't even talk to my family. Having healthy relationships with them now, and having healthy relationships with other people in the community, it helps to not go back to that, because that was a scary place. It's a scary place, being in the addiction and feeling alone and feeling like I didn't have nobody. Somebody's got to want to change for themselves. Like, you can't really make anybody change. It doesn't matter how many times you sit here and tell that person, like, you're gonna lose it all, or you're gonna go back to prison. If they're not ready to change, if they're not ready to put the drugs down, they're not gonna do it. All you can do is be supportive and be like, okay, well, when you're ready, I'm right here.
Addiction, mental health, and trauma, they're all the same basket. I was an IV heroin addict. I was probably what some would call the worst of the worst in my addiction. As soon as I medicated myself for my mental health, my addiction and my cravings went away. Now, I can't say that for everybody, because I know that addiction is different for everybody, and some people don't use it as a self-medication, but I did. And as soon as my mental health was stable, I didn't crave the drugs that I used, and I haven't since.
I think the turning point in my addiction was when I started changing my life right before my release, because I knew I wasn't just getting released from prison. I was getting released from 3 things at once. I was getting released from prison, I was getting released from gangs, and I was getting released from my addiction. It was that little spark of hope that I gave myself. I was like, all right, well, I am a good person. I do love my life, so not only do I need to get released from prison, I need to get released from these other things also.
I want to talk about loving myself. Loving myself is a feeling that I get the chills just saying that. I love myself. I'll go give myself a hug. It's funny because I worked with guys in prison who said, what do you mean by loving yourself? Getting high is not loving myself. Getting drunk to the point where I black out is not loving myself, right? Running and gunning and jumping people and doing stupid shit, that's not loving myself. That's putting myself in harm's way. Loving myself is the opposite of all that. Loving myself is literally taking care of myself, spiritually, mentally, physically, right?
Me as an addict, it's always gonna be there. But I know my red flags. I call them red flags because I know what I stay away from. I know the minute if I go back to what I know, with a snap of a finger, I'm gonna go to that place that I grew up in. It keeps me on my toes, keeps me on my feet, because I know the minute I surround myself with my old environment is the first minute that I am gonna more than likely relapse. Do you wanna continue your happiness? Do you wanna continue your success? Would you do anything to keep that success? And the answer is yes. So by all means, I would avoid hanging around with that old crowd. I would avoid going to places that's gonna trigger me. You can't avoid everything, but the quickest thing is to say no, just walk away. Walk away before any thoughts come around you. And this is me, just walk away.
Sometimes we need to hear that people believe in us, that people believe in me. Because for the longest time, I didn't believe in myself, right? My drug addiction took over. I was an addict, still an addict, but I was in the midst of my addiction for 25 years. 25 years, can you imagine that? high all the time. Wife, kids, drugs first, wife, kids second, family, whatever, jobs, you know. Couldn't keep a job anymore. People who we thought loved us will give up on us, you know. I burned my bridges, you know. When you get that feeling of acceptance again, and people loving on you genuinely, and not the what's in it for me mentality, man, that's a feeling that's unbelievable.